The raid on Scarborough, Hartlepool and Whitby, which took place on 16 December 1914, was an attack by the Imperial German Navy on the British seaport towns of Scarborough, Hartlepool, West Hartlepool, and Whitby. The attack resulted in 137 fatalities and 592 casualties, many of whom were civilians. The attack resulted in public outrage towards the German Navy for an attack against civilians, and against the Royal Navy for its failure to prevent the raid. Prelude: the German Navy had been seeking opportunities to draw out small sections of the British fleet which it could trap and destroy. Shortly before, a raid on Yarmouth had produced few results but demonstrated the potential for fast raiding into British waters. On 16 November, Rear Admiral Franz Hipper, commander of the German battle-cruiser squadron, persuaded his superior, Admiral Friedrich von Ingenieur, to ask the Kaiser's permission for a raid. U-17 was sent to investigate the area near Scarborough and Hartlepool for coastal defences. The submarine reported little on-shore defense, no mines within 12 miles of the shore and a steady stream of shipping. It was also believed that 2 British battlecruisers, which would be the fast ships sent out first to investigate any attack, had been dispatched to South America, where they had taken part in the Battle of the Falkland Islands. Hipper's force included the battle-cruisers SMS Seydlitz, von der Tann, Moltke and Derfflinger, the slightly smaller armoured cruiser SMS Blücher, 4 light cruisers SMS Strasbourg, Graudenz, Kolberg and Stralsund and 18 destroyers. Ingenieur took the 85 ships of the German High Seas Fleet to a position just east of the Dogger Bank, where they could assist if Hipper's ships came under attack from larger forces, but were still safely close to Germany as standing orders from the Kaiser instructed. British intelligence: the German fleet avoided any open engagement with the British fleet because it was smaller, but the difference between the two was less at this period in the war than at any other. Later, Britain improved its position by building more ships, particularly dreadnought battleships, which were considered decisive in any major engagement. The British fleet had the disadvantage of maintaining continuous patrols, whereas the German one remained mainly in home port. This meant the German Navy could choose a time to attack when all its ships were ready for sea, whereas some parts of the British fleet would always be in port receiving repairs or supplies, or on detached duty elsewhere. After several months of war, British ships were reaching the point where urgent repairs were needed and several had to be withdrawn from the Grand Fleet. 3 battle-cruisers had been sent to South America, and the brand-new dreadnought HMS Audacious had been lost to a mine. HMS Thunderer, another super-dreadnought battleship, was undergoing repairs. The British had one important advantage. German ships used 3 main codes for which code books were issued to their ships. Copies of these books had been obtained from sunk or captured vessels without the Germans' knowledge. British codebreakers had now reached the point where they could read German messages within a few hours of receiving them. Sufficient information had been gathered on the evening of 14 December to tell that the German battle-cruiser squadron would shortly be leaving port. However, the information did not suggest that the whole German fleet might be involved. Admiral John Jellicoe, commanding the Grand Fleet at Scarborough, was ordered to dispatch Vice Admiral David Beatty with the battlecruiser squadron of HMS Lion, Queen Mary, Tiger and New Zealand together with the 2nd Battle Squadron, commanded by Vice Admiral Sir George Warrender, containing 6 modern dreadnoughts. HMS King George V, Ajax, Centurion, Orion, Monarch and Conqueror. Commodore William Goodenough commanded the 1st Light Cruiser Squadron of HMS Southampton, Birmingham, Falmouth and Nottingham. Commodore Tirrotted Harwich was ordered to take to sea his 2 light cruisers, HMS Aurora and Undaunted, and 42 destroyers. Commodore Keyes was ordered to send 8 submarines and his 2 command destroyers HMS Lurcher and Fire Drake to take stations off the island of Terschelling to catch the German ships should they turn west into the English Channel. Jellicoe protested that although such a force should be sufficient to deal with Hipper, it would not be able to face the main German fleet. The 4 armoured cruisers of the 3rd Cruiser Squadron from Rosyth were added to the force, HMS Devonshire, Antrim, Argyll and Roxburgh, commanded by Rear Admiral William Pakenham. Jellicoe chose the point for this fleet to assemble, 25 miles southeast of the Dogger Bank. The intention was to allow the raid to take place, then catch the German ships returning. Raid. Admiral Hipper left the Jade River at 300 on the 15th of December. During the following night, one of the accompanying destroyers, SMS S-33, became separated from the rest and radioed for direction. This risked giving away the presence of the ships and the destroyer was ordered to be silent. Still lost, it headed for home but, on the way, sighted 4 British destroyers which it reported by radio. Hipper also noted radio traffic from British ships which caused concern that the British might be aware something was happening. He attributed this to possible spying by trawlers which were encountered during the day. The deteriorating weather was also causing problems. At 6:35 on the 16th of December, the destroyers and 3 light cruisers were ordered to return to Germany. Kolberg remained, as she had 100 mines on board to lay. The remaining ships now also divided. Seydlitz, Blucher and Moltke proceeded toward Hartlepool, while Derfflinger, von der Tann and Kolberg approached Scarborough. At 8:15, Kolberg started laying mines off Flamborough Head in a line extending 10 miles out to sea. At 800, Derfflinger and von der Tann began shelling the town. Scarborough Castle, the prominent Grand Hotel, 3 churches and various other properties were hit. People crowded to the railway station and the roads leading out of the town. At 9:30, the bombardment stopped and the 2 battle cruisers moved on to nearby Whitby, where a Coast Guard station was shelled, incidentally hitting Whitby Abbey and other buildings in the town. Hartlepool was a more significant target than the resort town of Scarborough. It had extensive civilian docks and factories and was defended by 3 BL-6-inch Mk7 naval guns on the seafront, 2 at Hugh Battery and 1 at Lighthouse Battery. The guns were manned by 11 officers and 155 local men of the Durham Royal Garrison Artillery. They were warned at 4:30 of the possibility of an attack and issued live ammunition. At 7:46, they received word that large ships had been sighted and, at 8:10, a bombardment of the town began. No warning had been given to naval patrols in the area, which were meant to be always on duty. However, the poor weather just before the raid meant that only 4 destroyers were on patrol, while 2 light cruisers and a submarine which might otherwise have been out, remained in Hartlepool harbour. The destroyers HMS Doon, Test, Waveney and HMS Moy were on patrol when, at 7:45, Doon saw 3 large vessels approaching. Shortly before they opened fire, the only weapons the destroyers had capable of damaging a large vessel were torpedoes. They were out of torpedo range, so 3 turned away. Doon closed to 5,000 yards and fired 1 torpedo, which missed, and retreated. On shore, the batteries remained confused by the approaching ships until shells began to fall. Shells from the ships were fired at such short range that their fuses did not have time to set, so many failed to explode on impact, or skittered away into the town because they were running horizontally rather than falling downwards. 2 shore guns fired at the leading ship, while the 3rd fired at the last, smaller vessel. The gunners were hampered by a rising cloud of smoke and dust around them, affecting visibility. They found their shells had no effect on the armoured sides of the ships, so instead aimed at mast and rigging. The accuracy of the 3rd gun was sufficient to oblige Blucher to move behind the lighthouse to prevent further hits. 2 of her 6-inch guns were disabled, while the ship's bridge and another 8-inch gun had been damaged. In the harbour, Captain Bruce of the light cruiser HMS Patrol attempted to get his ship to sea. The ship was struck by 2 8-inch shells, forcing the captain to run her aground. The second cruiser HMS Forward had no steam in her boilers, so could not move. The submarine HMS C9 followed patrol to sea and was forced to dive when shells started falling on them. By the time she got clear of the harbour, the enemy had gone. Commodore Roger Keyes commented afterward that a target of 3 stationary cruisers was exactly what the submarine had been intended to attack. The Hartlepool attack killed 86 civilians and injured 424. 7 soldiers were killed and 14 injured. 1,150 shells were fired at the town, striking targets including the steelworks, gasworks, railways, 7 churches and 300 houses. Once again people fled the town by road and attempted to do so by train. 8 German sailors were killed and 12 wounded. At 8:50, the German ships departed. Encounter with the High Seas Fleet. The battleships and cruisers commanded by Warrender set out from Scarborough at 5:30 on the 15th of December. The bad weather meant that he could not take destroyers with him, but Beatty brought 7 when he departed from Cromarty at 600. Together with the battle cruiser squadron, the two forces combined at 1100 near Moray Firth. As the senior admiral, Warrender had overall command of the force, which sailed toward its assigned interception point at Dogger Bank. At 5:15 on the 16th of December, the destroyer HMS Lynx sighted an enemy ship. The destroyer squadron went to investigate, and a battle ensued with a force of German destroyers and cruisers. Lynx was hit, damaging a propeller. HMS Ambuscade was taking on water and had to drop out of the engagement. HMS Hardy came under heavy fire from cruiser SMS Hamburg, taking heavy damage and catching fire, but managed to fire a torpedo. News of a torpedo attack was passed to Admiral in General commanding the High Seas Fleet, whose outlying destroyers were the ones involved in the fighting. The engagement broke off after a couple of hours in the dark, but at 6:03 the following morning one of the 4 destroyers still able to fight, HMS Shark, again came in contact with 5 enemy destroyers, and the 4 attacked. The German ships withdrew, reporting another contact with an enemy force to the admiral. In General had already exceeded the strict limit of his standing orders from the Kaiser by involving the main German fleet in the operation without informing the Kaiser that he intended to do so. At 5:30, mindful of the orders not to place the fleet in jeopardy and fearing he had encountered the advance guard of the British Grand Fleet, he reversed course back towards Germany. Had he continued, he would shortly have engaged the 4 British battle cruisers and 6 battleships with his much larger force including 22 battleships. This was precisely the sort of opportunity which German strategy had been seeking to even the odds in the war. The 10 British capital ships would have been heavily outnumbered and outgunned with likely significant losses. Their loss would have equalized the power of the 2 navies. Churchill later defended the situation, arguing the British ships were faster and could simply have turned about and run. Others, such as Jellicoe, felt there was a real risk and admirals such as Beatty would have insisted upon engaging the enemy once contact was established. Admiral Tirpitz commented in General had the fate of Germany in his hand. At 6:50, Shark and the destroyers again sighted an enemy ship, the cruiser SMS Rune, defended by destroyers. Captain Jones reported his sightings at 7:25, the signal being received by Warrender and also New Zealand in Beatty's squadron. But the information was not passed to Beatty. At 7:40, Jones, attempting to close on Rune to fire torpedoes, discovered she was accompanied by 2 other cruisers, and was obliged to withdraw at full speed. The German ships gave chase but could not keep up and shortly returned to their fleet. Warrender changed course towards the position given by Shark, expecting Beatty to do the same. At 7:36, he attempted to confirm that Beatty had changed course but did not get a reply. At 7:55, he managed to make contact, and Beatty belatedly sent his nearest ship, New Zealand, to intercept, followed by the three light cruisers spaced 2 miles apart to maximize their chance of spotting the enemy, followed by the remaining battle cruisers. At 8:42, both Warrender and Beatty intercepted a message from patrol at Scarborough advising that she was under attack by 2 battle cruisers. The chase of Rune, which might have led to an encounter with the main German fleet, was abandoned, and the British squadron turned north to attempt to intercept Hipper. Hipper's return at 9:30 on the 16th of December, Hipper's ships recombined and headed for home at maximum speed. His destroyers were now some 50 miles ahead, still moving slowly through bad weather. On inquiring where the High Seas Fleet was now stationed, he discovered that it had returned home, and that his destroyers had sighted enemy ships. Jellicoe was now requested to move south with the Grand Fleet, which was waiting at Scarborough. Tyrwhitt was ordered to join Warrender with his destroyer flotilla, but bad weather prevented this. Instead he joined the chase with just his 4 light cruisers. Keyser's submarines were to move into Heligoland Bight to intercept ships returning to Germany. Warrender and Beatty remained separated, first to avoid shallow water over the Dogger Bank, but then to cut off different routes which Hipper might take, escaping minefields laid off the Yorkshire coast. Beatty's light cruisers entered the minefield channels to search. At 11:25, the light cruiser Southampton sighted enemy ships ahead. The weather, which had started clear with good visibility, had now deteriorated. Southampton reported that she was engaging a German cruiser accompanied by destroyers, and Birmingham went to assist. Goodenough now sighted 2 more cruisers, Strasbourg and Groudens, but failed to report the additional ships. The 2 remaining British light cruisers moved off to assist, but Beatty, not having been informed of the larger force, called one of them back. Due to confusion in the signaling, the first cruiser misunderstood the message flashed by searchlight and passed it on to the others. The result was that all 4 disengaged the enemy and turned back to Beatty. Had Beatty appreciated the number of German ships, it is likely he would have moved forward with all his ships instead of recalling the 1 cruiser to screen his battle cruisers. The larger force suggested that major German ships would be following behind. The ships had now disappeared, but were heading toward the opposite end of the minefield, where Warrender was waiting. At 12:15, the German cruisers and destroyers exited the southern edge of the minefield and saw battleships ahead. Stralsund flashed the recognition signal which had been sent to her shortly before when she encountered Southampton, gaining a little time. Visibility was now poor through rain and not all the battleships had seen the enemy. Orion's captain, Frederick Charles Dreyer, trained his guns on Stralsund and requested permission of his superior, Rear Admiral Sir Robert Arbuthnot, to open fire. Arbuthnot refused until Warrender granted permission. Warrender also saw the ships, and ordered Pakenham to give chase with the 4 armoured cruisers. These were too slow, and the Germans disappeared again into the mist. Beatty received the news that Warrender had sighted the ships, and assumed that the battle cruisers would be following on behind the lighter vessels. He consequently abandoned the northern exit of the minefield, and moved east and then south, attempting to position his ships to catch the German battle cruisers should they slip past the slower British battleships. Hipper initially attempted to catch up with his cruisers and come to their aid, but once they reported the presence of British battleships to the south, and that they had slipped past, he turned north to avoid them. Warrender, realizing no battle cruisers had appeared in his direction, moved north, but saw nothing. Kolberg, damaged in the raid and thus lagging behind the others, saw the smoke from his ships, but was not herself seen. Hipper escaped. Belatedly, the Admiralty intercepted signals from the High Seas Fleet at Heligoland as it returned to port. and now warned the British ships that the German fleet was coming out. Jellicoe with the Grand Fleet continued to search on the 17th of December, attempting to engage the High Seas Fleet, but failed to find it. It was now safely in harbour. Keyes's submarines had been dispatched to attempt to find returning German ships. They also failed, although one torpedo was fired at SMS Posen by HMS E-11, which missed. As a last-ditch attempt to catch Hipper, the Admiralty ordered Keyes to take his 2 destroyers and attempt to torpedo Hipper as he returned home around 200. Keyes himself had considered this and wanted to try. Unfortunately, the message was delayed and failed to reach him until too late.